that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror.
We have the data and we'll go through on.
Life. It's everywhere around us. If I was a being from some far-off planet, stepping foot on Earth would no doubt be an absolute wonder. How enthralling. This oasis of abundance in a vast desert of stars. It's always blown my mind that we're surrounded by exoplanets that can sustain life. Are there plants and amoeba out there on these planets similar to here on Earth? And what about advanced intelligent life?
My name is Serena DC, and I've always been obsessed with the stars.
Oh, you got stars, stars in your eyes.
I've been gazing at them since I was just a little girl. And 6 years ago, I came to Hollywood to live among the stars, both in the sky and on the ground. I've made a name for myself in Tinseltown as a talk show host and reality star.
I kept a gun under my bed.
Overweight, just like that.
Condition of our society. Our society is this.
But as soon as the cameras are off, I come back to my real passion.
Hanging out with the stars in the sky.
Whilst I've always been a believer in alien life, I never had any meaningful UFO sightings.
I mean, right now, UFOs are everywhere.
Well, if there's a
Pilots training off the Atlantic coast see things like that all the time.
Every day for at least a couple of years.
I went to all of the UFO hotspots, hoping, wishing, praying that I would see something, and I never did.
That was until I came across a little movie called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind.
Human-initiated communication with extraterrestrials is possible.
What I'm doing with CE5 is the foundation for the relationship between humans and these extraterrestrials.
But that was only the beginning.
Watching the CE5 movie, I learned a set of protocols that I could use to communicate with the entities inside the UFOs. Everyone from government officials to A-list celebrities like Demi Lovato were doing it.
I've come to learn that the way to make these interactions with these beings are by expanding our consciousness. It's been so many times where I've been meditating and I've looked up and there's something in the sky. And so I think that through meditation you can make it happen.
The data on telepathy and other types of parapsychological functioning are quite clear that meditators do better. Okay, like a lot better. Because when you meditate, you start to become sensitive to the voice inside of you. And you start to see the thoughts that you're having, not as part of you, but that's happening in your awareness. And that's important for being able to sort of practice telepathy.
Initially, I thought that the idea of using meditation and telepathy to initiate contact with extraterrestrials sounded like a bit of a long shot. But the more I researched CE5, I discovered that thousands, if not millions of people around the world are not only learning how to do CE5, but they're actually seeing UFOs.
This excited me because finally I had a way that I could proactively get these UFOs to appear.
Proving that we are not alone. So picture this. I'm in a field in a country town in Australia called Hamilton, trying for the very first time to use the CE5 protocols with my friend Evan. Visualizing first the Milky Way, then zooming into our solar system, then our planet, then Australia, then finally to the spot where we were standing. We were optimistic, but not quite sure anything life-changing was going to happen. And then suddenly I open my eyes and right in front of us appears the biggest, brightest beam of pulsing plasma and an orb of light like nothing I've ever witnessed before in my life. materializing from one point in the sky and gliding slowly past us, silently shimmering and undulating. And then, just like that, it went shoom and instantly disappeared. And I just stood there knowing that that was not from this planet, that this UFO had come from somewhere else, that I'd sent out a message to the universe and something had answered.
What I saw that night changed my life forever.
And I had to know more, so I decided to reach out to Dr. Stephen Greer, founder of the Disclosure Project, which brought many high-profile whistleblowers public on CNN for the first time to talk openly about UFOs.
We are here today to disclose the truth about a subject that has been ridiculed and questioned, denied for at least 50 years.
I ended up 2001 getting contacted by Dr. Stephen Greer and said, look, he has interviewed like 100 people who have had these experiences and focusing a lot on police officers, military people, professionals, etc. And he said he wanted me to vet these people because he wanted to hold a major press conference at the National Press Club. So he wanted me to vet the people that he had interviewed to determine who the witnesses would be. And so that's what I did. And so I became legal counsel to the Disclosure Project.
The men and women who are on this stage, military, intelligence, witnesses to the so-called UFO matter and extraterrestrial intelligence can prove and will prove that we are not alone.
They were watching a UFO on a radar that was hovering at about 80,000 feet.
He says, well, this is the first time that we have recorded radar data on a UFO.
Vehicles have been seen and confirmed all over the planet.
We detected 15 objects.
Then it appeared over to the right and moved out slowly and flew with us.
Elliptical object, approximately 70 feet in diameter, emerged out of the water, shot into space, traveling at about 7,000 miles per hour.
What they did was coalesce and started rotating in a circle, and then they disappeared.
About 30 minutes into the process, he said to me, in a very distressed way, by the way, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow.
Last night's 60 Minutes story on UFO sightings by U.S. Navy pilots is causing a big reaction today.
Federal lawmakers who've been briefed on the sightings say we're dealing with something quite different this time.
The Pentagon confirms these are images of objects it can't identify.
We have deliberately stayed away from going down the rabbit hole of who's behind the wheel and what are their intentions. There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
Why is the government admitting this is real now? Like, are the ETs about to land and blow up everything like Independence Day?
I've never watched Independence Day. Really? I don't waste my time on crap like that. It has terrible intergalactic politics. It's like watching, The Birth of a Nation that makes fun of black people.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't seen it.
I have never thought of it like that way before, but that is so
because
true.
You have to think about the other beings as other beings.
Right. At first, this was really confusing and frankly, a little scary.
You tell these fools I'm not crazy! Make them listen to me before it's too late! Everyone! They're here already! You're next!
I do think that there is a whole narrative that we've been basically programmed by Hollywood even, as far back as the 1950s and sci-fi movies, that, basically positions any extraterrestrial as a hostile threat.
It's extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So again, it comes back to creating this fear porn that just gives people one more reason to be scared. Yeah, it's because here's the reason I call it fear porn is because there's a huge audience of people that loves to have the news scaring them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be based in fact. They'll put the dots together and they'll create the fact in their own minds.
They come from another world, spawned in the light years of space, unleashed to take over the bodies and souls of the people of our planet. bringing a new dimension in terror to the giant Super Scope screen.
Or is there something more unexpected that's drawing them here? Something is most definitely going on. The ET presence has become so strong now that governments around the world are being forced to acknowledge their existence. Technology has become so advanced that it's only a matter of time until we ourselves discover evidence of life on one of these exoplanets. Seeing these lights in the sky blew my mind, but it was also starting to drive me crazy. I couldn't get two burning questions out of my head. Who were the beings flying those craft? And what was the message they wanted to deliver to us here on planet Earth? Dr. Stephen Greer claims to be able to summon UFOs at will, and he's teaching lots of people how to do it. I shot him an email, and within 24 hours, I heard back. I'm flying to Washington, D.C. to meet up with Dr. Greer and to pick his brain on making contact and what making contact could mean for us.
One of the first requirements, in my opinion, of actually being an ambassador to the universe and doing CE5 contact is to clear all your prejudices and preconceived notions.
Right.
In fact, it's the pure-heartedness that someone approaches this with that is deterministic, much more so than the protocols.
Okay.
It's like a dance, but they need to be the leading partner because they have much better sensors than I have.
I'd never thought about any of this before. This is way more complicated than they exist or they don't exist. It's almost like we have to understand ourselves more before we can even try to understand who they are. I felt this deep connection that I can barely describe. I'd reached out to the cosmos, little me, and they had answered. I was changed, I was obsessed, there was no going back. I had to learn everything I could about it. I had to meet whoever I could who could tell me more, and so that's what I decided to do.
You've got to go to the actual person
and get that
you have to
information
get the
yourself.
information yourself.
Right. And I don't know why I'm here, but here we are, you know. And so I really wanted to ask you...
Can I tell you something about what you just said now, though? Women have a different point of view because a man will see the tree in the forest and a woman will see the whole entire forest. And the joining of that point of view with the wonderful work that science does is the whole entire puzzle. You cannot eliminate women's vision, intuition. So the wake up and pay attention is called consciousness.
What's common to all the methods, though, is that contact is made through our own consciousness. As crazy as that sounds, the evidence shows our minds are not confined to our brains, but spread out. And we all have the power to send an intention across the world, or, if we want, across the cosmos.
You need one thing, and that's that consciousness itself is the fundamental building block of reality. Consciousness is the base layer of everything.
Everyone thinks that the consciousness whereby you and I are awake are two separate things. The consciousness field is a singularity. There's one consciousness field in the creation. It's just illuminating each of our individualities. The meditation is the process of going deep and experiencing that point of all light, the source. Awareness itself is a singularity. It's one field. Now we trap it in our egos. This is why the father of quantum mechanics, Erwin Schrödinger, said, the total number of minds in the universe is one.
Even the Carpenters wrote a song showing you just how to do it. So I would absolutely love to talk about some of the amazing experiences people have had doing CE5.
Well, it was a couple of years ago up in Arizona, a place called Oracle, ironically. Now, what we see with our naked eye is like a ruby red teardrop shaped object between that medical student and Ed Moen, who had the hearing loss. And I see it straight on, and quite a few people did. Maybe a third of the people there were looking. But in the photograph, it's this 5 to 6 foot tall, sort of triangular head shaped
so incredible
ET who appeared there and was interacting with Ed Moen, who had the hearing loss. And when he woke up the next morning, his hearing was completely restored. He just got new $5,000 hearing aids. He said, I don't even need these.
So who was there when you took the most beautiful picture in the world?
Yes, we call it the light beam.
The light beam.
And we're on the Boca Grande. It's a beach community on the Gulf Coast. And I'm walking on the beach, and suddenly I see this being shimmering in front of us. So someone had a good camera who was beside me. I said, look, you take a picture of him. And in it is this, you can see the eyes kind of glowing. It's this kind of donut-shaped toroid energy field. And it's this very much this light beam that's just shimmering on the beach.
How did this all begin for you?
As you know, I had a near-death experience when I was 17, March of 1973. But I was up in the mountains of North Carolina 6 months after the near-death experience in October 1973, and was going up to this little over 5,000 foot mountain up above the little town of Boone, North Carolina. And beautiful day, October, crystal clear. And I wanted to see sunset and meditate. So I hike way up. Get there late afternoon before the sun's down, and I see that same spacecraft. They tagged me or knew about me somehow.
Since you were from when you were 8?
From when I was 8. So this is a decade later.
Wow.
It just appeared and then sort of hovered and then winked out. It's vanished. It didn't fly off, it just dematerialized. So I went, well, that's interesting. I went into that state in meditation again, very much like the near-death experience. So when I finished the meditation, I opened my eyes, looked at the stars, and the whole Milky Way was above my head. It was very beautiful, just exquisite. And a thought was sent to me that said, behold, what a beautiful universe God has made. With that, I went straight into the same state I was in when I did die.
Right.
And I saw that there was sort of a glow down the crest of the hill. And I thought, well, that's protection. And a few seconds later, there's a little beam, an ET, that comes over. I thought he or she was like a deer on hind legs with those beautiful deer eyes.
The eyes, yeah.
But it wasn't. Came over and touched my right shoulder, and when it did, I sort of had this massive electromagnetic discharge, and all my hair stood on end. So I go, wow, and then I just sort of vanish off the mountain onto this interstellar vehicle. And we meditate together. And what they were interested in, I don't think I was important. They were interested in a young man, a boy of 18, experiencing the universal communication substrate. How all interstellar communication happens is transdimensional through other dimensions, but increasingly consciousness fields. And so we had this amazing, I don't know, it must have been 2 or 3 hours. But it wasn't like talking like we are.
Yeah.
It was like being together with knowingness and packets. And then I came back. I came back about a quarter of a mile down the top of this ridge, not where I left. I was so happy. I wasn't afraid at all. All of this was like, wow, this is awesome. But it kind of wore off by the time I got back to town. And then I was more normal.
Was it just awe, like shock and awe?
Yeah. I mean, go, what?
Next up, Joshua Tree, California, where a lot of CE5 teams like to go for contact expeditions. Also, the land is considered sacred by Native Americans and is said to be a real hotspot for UFO activity. I invited paranormal expert Andrea Perron to join me out here in Joshua Tree.
So exciting. And I get to play paranormal with you.
I feel strange.
Spirit exists. Some of us see spirit with such ease. It's like, hey, good morning. You know? And then some of us are like, no fucking way did I just see that. Right? Right?
I think I'm so smiling. I feel like crying.
And crying. It opens up all of the emotions at once. It's a complete flood of emotion.
Do it. Oh, I'm having a cry.
You probably should sit here for a minute because if you stand up, you're going to topple over.
Andrea is such an incredible soul. I immediately fell in love with her, despite her, let's say, disturbing background.
There's a lady in a dirty nightgown that I see in my dreams. She's standing in front of my mom's bed.
Andrea grew up in a super haunted house, and her story was the basis of The Conjuring.
It's November 1st, 1971. I'm sitting here with Carolyn Perron, who, with her family, has been experiencing supernatural occurrences.
There's something horrible happening in my house.
Literally, the scariest fucking movie I've ever seen. But while The Conjuring made her super famous, it was only the tip of the iceberg when it came to Andrea's experiences. She's had lifelong contact with extraterrestrials and has dedicated herself to educating the public all about them.
They are us, we are them, and collectively we are one. But that's a lot to wrap a mere mortal mind around. In October, it'll be 50 years since I made first conscious contact.
50 years.
50 years. I was a ufologist before that term was invented.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened the first time?
I had just turned 13 years old, and I found myself standing in the middle of our voluminous front yard at the farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island.
Oh, the farmhouse?
The farmhouse.
Oh, okay. Was this before the terrible things happened, or?
No, it was after.
After?
Yes.
Okay.
We'd been living there almost a year when I was, for some inexplicable reason, standing out in the front yard by myself. It was close to sunset. All the trees were just exploding with autumn colors in New England. And it was so peaceful and so quiet. And then I realized how really quiet it was. And then I saw the shadow of something that came to a point. And I lifted my head up and watched an entire flotilla of vessels pass directly over the farmhouse. It was a vessel that was so large that it might well have been the size of Manhattan. Except take Manhattan and flip it
over, like,
upside down.
Wow.
And then it had escorts. And there were 2 perfectly round discs at the back of it, and then there were 2 squares, and then there were 2 triangles, and then there were 2 quadrangles, and then there were 2 pentagons. All geometric forms, all exactly equidistant from either side, and all absolutely silent. It should have terrified me. I suppose it should have terrified me. But I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. I felt an overwhelming sense of knowing. It was my personal paradigm shift at 13 years old. 40 years later, I found out that that flotilla moved down from around Nova Scotia, down the eastern seaboard, went to southern Maryland, hopped the pond, made a tour of Western Europe, and when the Royal Air Force scrambled their fighter jets to go after it, in a split second it disappeared over the Arctic Circle. They estimate that it went directly over the heads of 60 million people. There were 10,000 reports.
It was almost as though that was the day that the door opened.
It was.
For you. And since then you
Yeah.
have had thousands.
Joy.
Thousands of
It brought me
moments
joy.
of contact. Yeah.
A sense of belonging. A sense of belonging. I didn't feel like such a stranger on this planet anymore.
Everybody really wants to know, what do they look like? Are we talking about greys that are this high with massive eyes? Are they reptiles? Are they all different sorts? Do they look like ghosts? What has been your experience?
Most of the races are humanoid. Most.
The typical one is the classic gray. You know, with the big round head and the big dark eyes, and they're about 4 feet tall.
But they're different like we are. I mean, each of us are different. Sasquatch are the same, except their norm is hair.
I would like to say that there are many, 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 many different types of grays. There's some gray-looking ones, there's some white-looking ones, there's some beige-looking ones.
Telepathic communications.
And they were dressed in spacesuits. These are long Nordic-type people.
All of our job is to try to figure out what it is going on with the ET people. What are they up to?
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to know. Who are they?
Yeah, right.
Maybe the answers to what the ETs are looking for is buried inside of me. Maybe it's time for me to start looking within.
We're going to start with the fact that you're in this adult life moving back in time. I call him the willowy one. And he leaned over and looked in my face and telepathically said, "Do not be afraid. We're not going to hurt you. This is necessary for the hybrid program." I'm Misha Johnson. I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I specialize in trauma release hypnosis and past life regression, and especially in the ET experience and the unknown paranormal experiences that happen. And I've done thousands of these, and I really feel that is very, very important for people to find their answers themselves.
Well, what are some other things that happen to people that could mean they're being contacted? As an example, just say that I jolted out of bed. You know, like, is that a sign? Like, it could actually
they could be dreaming of ETs, and it could be ET experiences happening, or it could be memories of ET experience happening. So if someone has a lot of dreams about seeing ETs, it probably is because they are having missing time. Of course, that's a big one. Right. A lot of times, people will be locked out of their house. They come back and they're locked out of the house. Their pajamas are on backwards. Astral travel is another one, and it's slightly different than dreams, because when you come back in from a ship or come back in from an astral, you slam back into your body. And so those might be the ones where you
Right.
jolted out.
Okay, I'm definitely being visited. That's all that I can say. I wish I knew if it was happening to me, like for sure. Because I've had sleep paralysis. I've had missing time. I've sleptwalked. You know, there's been so many different things
sleptwalk.
that have happened
Oh my
to me.
goodness, yes.
How
a
can
very
I
important part.
figure out if I've actually been contacted?
Well, I think you should have a regression with me. We should just do
Really?
it.
I just feel so like angry and like there's nothing there. I can't see it. But I'm just like furious, you know.
You're angry. Okay.
Rage. Like
Now, and I want you to just allow yourself to be on that cloud, and you're going to start going back from 1980 to 1979 to 78 and on into other lives, past lives, lives that will help you understand what your mission here on Earth is. Let's go to the very first time you saw these beings that are your guides. There when you were born?
just looking. They're sort of, oh, this is weird.
Go ahead.
They're kind of saying, they're like welcoming me back.
Oh.
As in, hello, you know, calm down. You're in a body. Here you are. You're in a new body. You're a baby. Chill out. You know what to do. You always knew what to do.
You know what to
You
do.
just need to do it.
Okay.
I need to stop telling them that I'm not ready. Because if I keep telling them that I'm not ready, then they're not gonna give me the information. And if they don't give me the information, then I can't share the information. And I can't save them.
Well,
this is so painful. This is not fun.
No.
At all. Just be brave. Stop being selfish. Stop like trying to like protect myself. Just be like more open.
So what about the fear factor that comes in? Can you rise above that? Ask them if they can help you with that.
That's why I'm here. Like here. Like today. So what happened to me? Why is it so scary? Like,
Go to another lifetime where you saw this energy, a place where you're like with your guides, a place where you're powerful and strong. I want you to go to that life. Let's go back there. 3, 2, 1.
yeah, I'm there. I'm old.
Okay. Are you male or female?
Male, old man.
No,
It's
man.
like Egypt time, but like before. So it isn't 3,000 years ago. It's 10,000, 12,000, 30, you know. And the pyramids were already there. Just, people get it wrong. I'm smart, super smart person. I keep records. And they're just there and it's normal. The beings.
That's your job. It's been that way for a long time.
Everyone knows them. They're just there. It's normal. It's not even. It's just. I'm not afraid. But it's the little guys from the movie. It's not the greys. It's the little munchkin ones.
I am the dreamer. You are the dream.
And they're just around
And when are they around you?
all the time. But I'm hearing something now, and it's freaking me out. They're just saying C. What's that? C. As in S-E-E. It's not gonna,
I want to see.
I'm not gonna get there.
No.
I can feel myself getting pushed out of the
Okay.
hypnosis.
Okay, so allow yourself to just
I've just been pushed
Let's
out.
count you back. Let's count
Pushed
you back
out.
up.
Pushed
Okay.
out.
Pushed out.
I cried, right? Because I could feel like I was crying. Was I actually crying?
You cried.
I felt it was the weirdest thing. I felt like fucking terrified and furious with myself. Like I'm blocking something.
Oh,
I don't know what it is, and I don't know. It's very weird to live your life and everything's fine, and then to do something like this and then realise it's not fine. Like, I honestly can't even remember what we just did.
Okay,
all I can remember
that's
is
very normal.
Is
very
this
normal.
9 thing and feeling really.
Yeah, until you got the fear pushed you out. You had the fight or flight.
Yeah.
And that's what took you
It was
out.
the feeling of it was that whatever was going on there, whatever I was channeling or guide or whatever, it literally at the end it was like, okay, get out. Get out. I'm not telling you anything else, get out. That's how it goes.
Just not ready.
Everyone is telling me not to be afraid. And when I'm doing these interviews, I'm just sitting there nodding, going, yes, 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 yes. But inside, I'm absolutely terrified. Fear is so deeply ingrained in all of us. But I'm gonna have to get over it if I wanna have another deeply meaningful, life-changing experience. Things were getting a bit weird. And to make them weirder, the opportunity popped up to meet with Bigfoot researcher Jim Myers while he was in town.
Hey,
my
Serena.
goodness. Hello, how are you?
You ready to talk about Sasquatch?
I know. What does Bigfoot have to do with aliens? Well, I went in trying to keep an open mind.
What your feeling towards Sasquatch is basically however you feel about that encounter. One person may say that was the most terrifying encounter of my life. Someone else may say it was fascinating, it was magic. And I've had those magical moments once I began to get over my initial fear. Because I've decided if they wanted to hurt me or the people that I take into the woods, they've had hundreds of opportunities to do that. They have all the advantages at night, and I have none. What is Sasquatch? Is it a great ape? I don't think, personally, I don't think so. I don't think their behavior, their physiognomy,
Or their movement,
their
right?
movement, their family structure is not like a great ape. They've been sighted in every state in the United States and on most continents. The DNA studies that have been done showed that they, on the female side of the DNA, it was human, the male side was unknown. I don't believe it's from this planet. There are theories out there, and you don't have to look far to find them, of Sasquatch appearing at a similar time and in similar space to an alien craft. Some people have even said, I saw them get out of the alien craft, but
Kind of like a Wookiee.
makes you wonder where the Wookiee idea came from,
Right?
doesn't it?
Because that's kind of
It
what
does.
it is, right?
He made a fair move. Screaming about it can't help you.
Because hang on a minute. We're talking about Bigfoot here, right?
Well, that's right.
They better be some big goddamn
Well,
feet.
if they're
Are they like
if they're
this big?
On the ground, there was a footprint. A big footprint.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Harry and the Hendersons, one of the best.
Yeah, I really wanted to be friends with the Sasquatch.
We actually have areas where we bring gifts and we do gifting exchange with them. We've had them bring things to us that we didn't put there. Take
Like
a
what?
blue jay feather. We had a little plastic toy cow, and they stuck the feather in the joint. We've had them bring gifts back 2 years after they took them the first time. They showed up again. The evidence we have is hundreds of photographs of how they manipulate their environment, particularly trees. They break trees, they bend them into arches and stick the end into the ground to keep that arch shape. They create structures of full-grown trees, 50, 60 feet long, that are leaned together, too large for us to carry. There's no way we could carry them there. There's probably millions of game cameras across this country. How in the world are we not getting pictures of Sasquatch?
Right.
The interesting thing is Sasquatch will steal the cameras. I have had them take the cameras and I never see them again.
Yeah.
I have seen things in the woods that I would categorize as being cloaked, meaning I could see color and movement through the trees. There was absolutely movement. I expected to see a hiker walk out of the trees,
Right.
and there was no one there.
Kind of like Harry Potter's cloak of invisibility.
I have friends that have seen a shape in the woods that you could see through. I call it the predator effect.
Oh, I know exactly what you're
where
talking
it's
about.
kind of shimmery. They could see there was something going on with the air. Their normal state may be invisible. They choose to become visible when they want to be seen by us. And then as they looked, that shimmer moved and the shape stayed the same. And at that point, they left. I mean, they didn't want to know anymore.
No, I would run too.
And I have friends who have actually watched them through binoculars dissolve into nothing and disappear. And so over the years, we begin to trust them where things don't scare me like they used to. I would have been terrified 10 years ago by some of the things that have happened. And now I just see it as them messing with us and testing us a little bit to see how we're going to react. And they have a sense of humor. They do things to us, I think, honestly, because they think it's funny.
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing you talk this way because it just reminds me so much of people that have had contact experiences with ETs.
Really?
It's the exact same thing, that fear and trepidation initially, but afterwards it almost becomes kind of playful, you know, and you're welcoming their contact rather than being terrified of it.
In many cases, we don't need to be afraid of them the way we are because they're there and they mean something. They're here for a reason.
Right.
We just have to understand what that reason is, but they have a lot to offer to us if we are open to receiving it from them. If it is alien, then who or what created that combination? I think this is critically important because, as we know, there's more and more evidence coming forth every day about UFOs and extraterrestrials in our midst and things that I think the government has known for a long time but are only just now talking about.
You know, the so-called disclosure is more non-disclosure than disclosure. And, you know, I had hoped against hope that maybe, just maybe, this one time,
There'd be a
that they
document
would
that
be
wasn't
right,
90% sanitized.
yeah,
But I mean,
or
they are-
redacted to the
but
point
they
where
are
it's
acknowledging.
unintelligible.
They are acknowledging, but it's almost as though
it's not good enough.
Yeah.
It's too little, too late.
It's still
I don't want to
subjective.
hear it.
It's still,
I have a lovely friend, Paula Harris, and I reached out to her recently, and I was so furious and frustrated because of the dope that's coming out of the Department of Defense.
I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. But Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
I'm Paula Harris. I'm an investigative journalist. I've worked in this field for 40 years.
I am so excited to sit down with her.
And I was wondering why my colleagues didn't go and talk to these guys, because that's not what I do. I go and talk to people.
Yeah, investigate.
I investigate. Later on, I realized that Roswell is a big story, and they don't want other stories to usurp Roswell.
We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States.
2 years before, 1945, when Oppenheimer, Einstein, and all the Manhattan Project planned on
In the control shack was Dr. J.R. Oppenheimer.
The automatic controls got it now. Rob, this time the stakes are really high.
It was not a test. That was not a test because it had radiation 150 miles around the actual Trinity site. Part of that opened up a Pandora's box in other dimensions. Whatever we did there,
The physical shock of it.
The shock of it, the physics of it went into other dimensions and caught the attention of something.
Everybody still thinks of Roswell as the beginning, you know.
Right.
You know, in 1945, the words flying saucer did not exist in the
Next, I met legendary tech pioneer and paranormal researcher Jacques Vallee, who created the world's first computer database on UFO encounters in the 1960s for Project Blue Book, the first official US government program to study UFOs. Paula Harris and Jacques just published a book that might change the way the world thinks about the entire UFO phenomena.
It is my earnest hope, and indeed the hope of all mankind, that from this solemn occasion a better world shall emerge out of the blood and carnage of the past.
This was 2 days after the capitulation of Japan. Everybody was still in uniform, 1 month after the atom bomb. Is that a coincidence? Probably not. They were 20 miles away from the first atom bomb.
On the 16th of August, there was a thunderstorm, a rainstorm. 2 little boys, they were under a cliff.
The ranch was 88,000 acres, so it was very large. So those kids were the ones who were running the ranch.
Yeah.
They were responsible for the fences, they were responsible for the cattle.
And they saw this craft come in, take out a part of a radio tower, and crash on the land of the 9-year-old boy's, Jose Padilla's father, Faustina.
The control tower. Noticed that the communication tower was not transmitting anymore.
Right.
Asked an airplane that was coming in for a landing, the bomber, to look at it. The pilot saw the tower, the communication tower, also saw the UFO that had, quote, crashed.
The 2 little boys were very curious. They went over to the crash site.
The vegetation was on fire. The craft was not on fire. The craft was intact.
A piece was missing, a panel was missing from the craft.
There was an opening where the door had been ejected. So the kids could see inside, and they realized that those were not humans.
And they saw 3 little beings sliding back and forth. And Jose says they were squealing like rabbits when you shoot a rabbit. They were like babies cry. He said he thought they were hurt. He wanted to go in and help them, but the 6-year-old started to cry. Remy started to cry.
They were short. They were about the size of the kids. But they had very narrow shoulders, a large head. They had eyes and a small nose, small mouth.
They were there for a long time watching these beings. The craft is not a flying saucer. It is the same shape as the casing of the Manhattan Project bomb. It is an avocado shape, so there what it is to tell you. They went home, they told Sheriff Apodaca and the father.
Jose's father needed their help in town, and when they came back on day number 3, the father and the policeman went inside the object. The beings were not there. Okay? There had been some cleanup done.
Wow.
You know, somebody had to go secure the site.
So do you think that the beings were taken?
Or they may have been taken by their own.
And what we have is a recovery that took 8 days because it was the first crash. So the Army, and there was no Air Force at the time.
They weren't particularly hiding it in the way that they
No,
did with
they didn't
Roswell.
know what
What is
happened.
this?
What is this?
What are we dealing with here?
What are we dealing
Right.
with?
After that, the kids were there every day until the final recovery of the craft.
The 9-year-old said, we need a souvenir.
The thing was on the truck, taken with a crane.
So he goes inside. There is a panel stuck to the wall. There is a copper circle, and in the middle, there's a rotating bracket.
You know, ask the other kid to go get a crowbar.
He takes a crowbar, pulls out the rotating bracket. They hide it under the sheep herder's shack because they don't want to tell anybody they stole anything. Yeah. The sheep herder belonged to the Tabaka family, so he says, I have to move out of here. And the Bacas say, why? He says, because 3 little homocitos came through the wall looking for a tesoro. And that's what they call the bracket they pulled off.
The disc, yeah.
Yeah. It was a bracket.
Oh, right.
And it is now at Stanford with Jacques Vallee.
Hold on. So Jacques has this thing.
Yes.
What? Do you know what happened to the souvenir?
And not only that, Jaime Maussan has analyzed it in Mexico. Jacques and his team are analyzing it. It is made of aluminum. Mm-hmm. We don't know what else is in there. This is the only case that has the witnesses, the exact location,
the physical
from inside the crowd.
Mad when you're ready.
So this is not the real thing. This is a model.
Of the thing that
it's a scale model.
Wow.
The real thing was.
That wasn't what I was expecting at all.
I was so excited to see Jacques' alien artifact, but when he handed it over to me, it wasn't what I was expecting. But then again, what was I expecting? I don't know.
What Jose extracted from this object when he was inside was something like this. This is a model, okay, and was made of an aluminum alloy. Now we have the device. We're torturing it to make it talk. Okay? Yes, I have the opportunity to continue to learn something about physics and about what happened in those years.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a privilege for me.
The boys picked up 10 pounds of what they called spider web, which is angel hair, that was lit up, and they trimmed their Christmas trees with it in San Antonio because they didn't know what it was. So they're trimming the Christmas trees. They put it on the windows so that their neighbors said, we like what you have, and they said, you want some of it? And it came out of the crash.
Did you physically handle the artifacts from
Oh yeah, I had them. They were in my possession.
What things did you have? What did you have?
I had integrated circuits, like the size of a quarter. I had a bunch of wires. Colors were coming out of it. I don't say wires. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know if they were wires or anything. They actually, I didn't know what they were. They just were emitting light.
The angel hair sounded a lot like the fiber optics that Corso was talking about. Could this technology have come from Trinity and not from Roswell, like he'd originally assumed?
Because this is a guy that was famous for back engineering the fiber optics and the Army's back engineering stuff. He was never able to speak in the United States because of a lawsuit.
It's really my experiences as I lived them in research and development of the Army under General Trudeau, Arthur Trudeau, and he drew me back in and put me in charge of that and established a foreign technology division for me. And these were the artifacts on a crashed flying saucer. And we fed these things. He gave me the job of finding industry or scientists who were close to these items and feed us to them in normal R&D projects.
Corso got these things in 1960. So the big question is, where is this stuff?
Right.
He said, my job was to give it first to the Army and then to give it to the people.
Yeah.
This man is giving me a story that nobody else got, by the way, because I happened to be next door. I was like, how did that happen? I, at the time, was in Rome, and my boss said, you got to cover the 50th anniversary of Roswell. And that place was solidly booked. So I walked into the media place and I said, I don't have a place to sleep and I'm supposed to cover this story and I'm not going 40 miles away. And the first place that I found was a Sally Port Inn.
Okay.
And I asked them if they had a room and they said, we do have a room for 3 days. It was a room next to Colonel Corso. Any more than that? I didn't know that because I didn't know him. So when he comes out of the room, after I found out who he was, he said, you're from Italy, and he said, I'm going to come and talk to you. He gave me the only interview, but it was an interview I didn't want.
Right.
Because he told me that when he was the head of missile battalion at White Sands, that when he was flying over the area, White Sands in New Mexico, that he saw a UFO there. And he said that when he landed and took the car over to the UFO, a being came out of the cave. And it was not a gray, it had a helmet, it was a little man type being with a band with a red stone in the middle.
Friend or foe? Neither. Will you turn off your radar so that I can take off?
What's in it for me?
A new world, if you can take it. Thank you.
Friend or foe? Then he turns to me and he says, guess what he said? I said, he said neither. And Colonel Corso said, he said neither. So remember that. They are not good, they are not bad, they're not our friends, they're not our enemies.
They're just there.
They're just there.
Right.
They're neither.
It makes sense, doesn't it? There's good and bad in everything, including in each of us. But if they're not here to save us, and they're not here to destroy us, what do they want?
And the being said, a new world, if you can take it. He says, what does a new world, if you can take it, mean? And after all of these years, there's nothing else that's more important than the new world.
Occasionally in CE5, or even just meditating outdoors, there has come over me this palpable sense of oneness. It's a state that you can drop into and that I think is available to everyone. And it's this comfort, quiet, thick feeling, I suppose, of being connected to it all. You know, in this community, we always say things like, we're all one, we're all connected. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to really feel it and understand it.
Adam M. Curry is a respected consciousness researcher and tech entrepreneur. He's run well-regarded experiments in human consciousness potential at places like Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab and the Institute of Noetics Science.
So you're in this that state, and you've, set your intention, and lights appear, craft appear, beings, whatever it happens to be. How are they picking up that message?
So again, we don't know, but like I was saying before, that consciousness is the sort of the basic building block of physical reality, then this is something that unites us.
Right.
In fact, at some level, there is no distinction between us and the ETs. We are one, okay?
Talking to Adam was a real aha moment for me. I finally felt a sense of peace come over me. The fear had lifted, and I was ready.
I think a lot of kids get excited about the possibilities like we're discussing. They go into a science career and they find it quite soul-crushing because all of the really interesting elements that make us human are told are false. There's a paradigm in science that's called materialism that says that consciousness isn't real, ergo psychic functioning isn't real, there's no such thing as free energy. Like all these things that would compel you towards a scientific career, you're told are not real, so forget about it.
I mean, regular people are being told from the time they're little children that this is silly and it isn't true and it's all a fiction or fantasy.
Well,
Why?
Why is it like
Why
that?
aren't they listening?
Because they don't want to change their lives.
Like through fear?
Well, what about your life?
Fear of
No.
acceptance? Or what do you think it is?
When you accept the responsibility, the way you're not the same anymore. You can't even look at your family or anybody the same anymore. How many people do you know that want to change their entire life?
I myself am an experiencer. So when you have seen and experienced close at hand things that have been not spoken about, things that have been repressed, and not only that, people get ridiculed when they talk about these kind of things, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
So,
Which I love about you, by the way, and which I'm terrified about for myself, but...
Yeah, well, the thing is, the more we talk about something, the more it's okay to talk about it. We normalize it.
Yeah.
But some of the children are not being told that. The new generation say, well, sure, there's extraterrestrial life. And so one of the theories is that that's exactly what's happening, is that there's this whole acclimation process is going on that's going to take place over an entire generation. We're the ones that are kind of living through this 100-year period, and the generations that come on behind us are going to find this to be much more part of their everyday life. But I believe that what's happening is that the people that are in that elite group that are guarding this information, they just aren't going to talk about it. They're going to try to just pass right by it.
You have to keep your foot on their neck. They're not going to give it up for free, right? But we know that we're very close to pulling it out of them.
Commuters who ride trains and subways are used to seeing performers on the platform. They don't expect to see a classical music giant.
That's him on the left playing unannounced in a metro station more than 7 years ago. It was a stunt designed by the Washington Post to see if busy workers passing by would stop for beautiful music. They did not.
How do you go about determining whether something is real or not? What is it that you require, and who are the sources from which you have to hear it in order to believe it?
More than 1,000 people went by, 7 people stopped.
People have been so trained into just getting and spending and laying waste their lives, spending all of their time.
Keep in mind that in the world of music, Joshua Bell is violin royalty.
There's a reason why people don't get time to spend more time paying attention to things like this, and that we have to help that. So we have to change a lot of things about our culture.
But something about that one day made him that guy. You were the guy who played in the Metro.
I'm the guy. You know, sometimes I get people telling me the story. Did you hear about the guy who played in the Metro? It's like, that was me.
There's a lot of forces arrayed to suppress this, you know, and that they're constantly depending upon regular people believing whatever the people in positions of authority say, that they're allowed to think about, that it's okay to think about, or what you can't think about.
So Union Station was his Washington comeback, and everyone knew it. He played the same music, but wanted it heard.
This time, not only were they came out in numbers, the warmth, it was almost like maybe they were making up for because they all knew the story.
People who are usually inside institutions accept whatever the limitations are that the institution has accepted upon what its role is, so that they fit in to the whole power structure. And if they try to get outside of that activity, people inside the institution, the leadership of the institution, will push them out. And so that's what happened in 1994, which was Dr. John Mack, the head of the Department of Clinical Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, that had done all these interviews, and so he knew everybody.
Society as a whole doesn't want to accept this. So they say, well, maybe it's psychological, or they attack me, or they, shoot the messenger, whatever.
Dr. Mack's new book is called Abduction. Dr. Mack, you with your credentials coming from Harvard, what do you think this all means?
So I want to talk to you a little bit about what the experiences shared with John Mack, and also what the other experiences shared. Was there a common denominator? What were the key messages they were being told?
If you encounter the beings themselves, in that they look different from human beings that have been encountered by completely credible people, there are two things that are being communicated regularly. The first one is that you've got to get rid of the nuclear weapons.
Again with the nukes.
And your planet is extraordinarily important because your planet generates life. It actually gestates life. And so the nuclear weapons are threatening to wreck that and can poison the planet for millions of years, okay? And so you've got to stop that.
I was stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, as a missile launch officer, Minuteman Missiles. I got a call from my primary security guard upstairs, clearly very frightened. He said there was a bright, glowing red object hovering outside the front gate. It was oval-shaped. All as my weapons started going down, one after the other, they went into a no-go condition, what we call a no-go condition. They were unlaunchable. We lost somewhere between 6 and 8 weapons that morning within minutes of a UFO hovering outside the front gate. And in one telex, it says the fact that no apparent reason for the loss of 10 missiles can be readily identified is cause for grave concern to this headquarters.
When they come over a nuclear facility and turn off all the missile sites, you might think they'd say, well, somebody's going to do something about that. And the fact is, if the people who try to report that it's happened are being punished inside the military, this is perplexing the UFO beings. Well, wait a second, that's not a rational response to our effort to communicate with them.
They convey in the experiences, in the encounters, on the ships, through the eyes, through telepathic communication. They show us ourselves. They say, look, you're destroying the earth. It is not yours. You have to stop this.
And the second thing that they're saying is, you've got to stop polluting your planet. You're putting chemicals up into your atmosphere that are going to destroy your climate system. And your whole planet is going to die. For example, the kids at the Ariel School in Africa in 1994, John Mack interviewed the kids.
Something scared you, is that right?
Yes.
What scared you?
The noise.
What noise?
The noise that we heard in the air.
You heard a noise in the
Yes.
air? What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute. And we heard this flute, sort of like a flute noise. We were just walking, and then we saw this maroon color just waving about, and it was disappearing and disappearing, and we started to follow it. Then we stood over there on one of the logs, and we saw like this silver thing, and we decided that we should go down there and see. And then we quickly ran to the logs, and we saw a silver thing. Little object hovering. It was quite big, actually. Like it looked like roundabout like a disc, like silver and green and that sort of colours.
This ship, and it had this ride like a pattern, yellow, purple, and green.
And we saw a man standing next to it.
One thing sitting on the side, and another thing sort of like running up and down the top.
And the other one was running across the ship, because there were also trees here. I saw one person sitting on top of the ship and guarding it, and another one running up and down like he was confused. And one poked its head up and looked at me out of the grass. And me and Candace were really scared. We nearly screamed.
What did it feel like when he was looking at you?
Felt scared.
It felt scary? What was scary about it?
Well, felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
Did you see the eyes? What did they look like?
They were going like that. And he was actually looking at us, kind of like that.
Oh.
Yes. He had a big head, and his mouth was just like a line, like this. His nose was quite small, and his mouth was quite small. And he was very thin.
Did you look at him?
Yes.
Did he look at you?
Yes, then he gave me the creeps, then I stopped looking
Gave you
at
the
him.
creeps. Actually, in your drawing, you showed him standing up, didn't you?
Yes, I had to draw him standing up because I couldn't draw him sitting. No, they were very still.
They could see them, and they were getting these pictures in their mind, how the kids kept referring to it. And it kept showing our planet all desolate with trees with all leaves gone on it and everything all shrunken and dry.
What I thought was maybe the world's gonna end. Maybe they're telling us the world's gonna end. Because because we don't look after the planet, the area properly. It was like the world, all the trees will just go down, and there will be no air, and people will be dying.
Drought and heat waves across many western states. Some experts worry that this could go on for months.
At least 7 people have died in a raging fire in a rural community along the popular garden route in southern South Africa.
In Greece's Evia Island, in the grip of its own heat wave, more flames tear through a pine forest.
They came from many other cities. They did not know that they were going to be here for 9 days.
Então não tendo água, não moia, né? O campo fica secou demais. Não é só o gado, sofre tudo, né? O gado, tudo vai sofrer.
It's very volatile, and of course we had the eucalyptus, which is in the air. Very, very terrifying.
Had you had those thoughts before this experience?
No.
No. And how did he get that across to you?
Well, he never said anything. It's just that the face is the eyes. He was interested.
They show the People have had these experiences, these incredibly beautiful images of the planet, and it's, you know, like flowers and the moss and the water.
The ones that held in their arms justice for all mankind.
And then they show that juxtaposed with scenes of utter destruction, forests destroyed by acid rain,
Is this reality?
rivers polluted where the fish won't
Can't
live.
define what makes us care to breathe.
Just walked away and I started crying.
But if I ruled the world, I'd sail the seas, looking for someone to tell me what it means to love without taking, hold with gentle ease, you stay where you can't see what's really beneath. If I ruled the world.
They all understood that they were going to have to do something to stop this from happening to our planet.
When I went home the day after this incident had happened, I told my mom, and she said, actually, I don't believe you, but my dad came home and I told him all about this, and he said it was probably just a rumor. I felt really upset because I knew that it was true.
If I ruled the world.
The beings convey through those images to the experiencers that we are in fact destroying life on the planet. They don't pull any punches about that. It shows us our deepest, most destructive dimension of ourselves.
Love without taking, hold with gentle
We are the threat. We are the threat to ourselves. You know, it's not the extraterrestrials that are threatening us. Our national security state is threatening us because they're designing weapons that will destroy the whole world in order to allegedly protect the boundaries of a particular nation state.
I think that the most important message that they have imparted is that they can't do it for us, that we have to save ourselves from ourselves. And we don't have a plan B, and we don't have a planet B.
We've got to, you know, not only open our minds to be prepared, but we have to also start developing a supplemented reality system that adjusts to this new reality.
But are all the different species that communicate saying the same thing?
Yes.
So these messages are coming from Africa, Latin America, and from Sasquatch in North America too.
Because of what people have said that they've had communicated to them in their mind,
Mentally.
through mind speak. They want to teach us how to take better care of the planet than we're doing, because they are kind of the keepers of the earth.
So if these messages are coming from all over the planet, from all different types of beings, and we haven't heeded their warnings yet, are we too late?
But don't they know? Like, don't they know the end game? Like,
no.
Like, how does that
It's
work?
all-
You get what I mean?
it's-
Like, why would they bother if they know that we've already failed?
We never are, it's never cast in stone.
A wise person knows that when you talk of the future,
Mm.
you can only speak of probable futures. It may have a 95% probability, but it's not 100% because there are too many variables that
Free
can
will.
alter that.
And that's my whole goal for the rest of my life.
And that is
Just
actually
move the needle.
terrifying, because what you're saying is that right now, when they look at our future, as it is right now,
yes, we're toast.
We're toast. We're fucked.
toast.
Oh,
There's
that's
no
actually
other-
horrible.
Which makes me
Existence
feel
is
good is that
terrifying.
you feel a responsibility. That makes me feel good.
Feel angry.
No, but you feel a responsibility. You want to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the only reason we're doing this is to make people do something.
More people need to start listening. That's what needs to happen.
No, more people need to move.
We need to pull out of a death spiral. And these civilizations know that. But they're not going to impose it. These civilizations are so conscious, socially so advanced, they understand this. So an outside force imposing something like that will never happen.
Okay.
It has to come from within.
This is an opening to another world that makes a human being much more than just a human being. A human being is part of a cosmos.
Right.
You can change it in a second, and it takes the power of thought.
You know, Einstein said, nothing's ever been solved by the level of consciousness that created it.
You know, we have this bias looking down at things, but we rarely kind of see ourselves in that picture, sort of looking up as though we're a part of like a larger ecosystem of consciousness.
I mean, seriously, mind blown.
It's maybe more like consciousness is connecting with itself simultaneously, but it seems to be happening in different organisms.
And they said, oh, humans. Maybe they can raise their consciousness.
You know, there was a lab that I was a part of called the Pear Lab at Princeton University, and we were looking at the ability of people to affect physical systems outside of their body using only their thoughts, only their intention. Okay. Pop culture word is telekinesis or psychokinesis.
So this has been pretty well established scientifically at Princeton, where he would put people in front of random number generators, just spitting out zeros and ones, quantum machines.
Yeah.
And if they put their awareness on it and say, we want it to put out more zeros, it does. And if there are two people that love each other, it's exponential.
Now, every single person that came into the lab had the potential to do it. Most people actually did it. I think that maybe that's the real message to the CE5 stuff, is it's not. It looks like it's sending your thought beams or something out into space, but really what you're doing is you're working on your own sense of what's possible. And you're healing those things that are keeping you from experiencing a broader reality.
Adam was right. It all comes back to consciousness. I had glimpsed this higher state, but I wanted to go deeper. So I headed out under the stars with some friends to try CE5 one more time.
Biggest thing is clearing your head first. What a lot of people do in mistake is they don't learn to meditate and they don't learn to clear their head. So while they're trying to send a message, I think the thought about if they lock their door to their house or if they forgot to turn off an alarm gets in the way of the communication.
I'm not so sure that it's really any strategy, but it's whatever works for you. It's being with friends you trust. But I think it's all in service of allowing yourself to experience the phenomenon, whatever it is. A simple technique to clear our minds, which you can do with eyes closed or eyes open.
We have to understand that our connectivity is our strength, and it can also be our downfall, and we have more power and influence over the field and over the environment than we realize. In fact, I think there's a direct correlation to the environment being in distress and us as a whole, as humanity being in distress. We're directly, possibly affecting the weather.
Become aware of your entire body. Feel both the back of your head and the front of your head at the same time. As you do this, there will be little slivers of presence. Little moments where you wake up into your own brain.
See, Yeah, look. Did you see it? Tell me someone saw that. Did you see it? It was like, whoo.
Got it, I got it.
You got it? Cool.
I'm really grateful that I've got to meet the most amazing people in the world and go on the most life-changing journey. I had the most amazing time under the stars with my friends, meditating, connecting with each other. And whilst everyone was there trying to communicate with ETs and hoping that maybe they'd see something, I felt this sense of peace and this sense of connectivity to the stars, and it was a really beautiful moment for me.
So then imagine if thousands or millions of people are doing something like this.
Yeah.
It can actually cause a huge shift in civilization by people who don't even know you're doing it.
You know, and so that we have an extraordinarily high obligation here to protect this entity, and we've got to be able to do this. If they're giving us time, a whole generation to do this, we've got to do this.
One of the good things about millions of people doing CE5 contact is that it overwhelms their ability to suppress it.
Right. When there's one or two, it's one thing, but when there's 50,000, well...
Exactly.
We are the point of disclosure. You and me and others like us who have our own group, our own tribe, as it were. It is time for truth. The time is now. This is the paradigm shift. We are squarely in the midst of it, and if we screw this up, we're done.
And it's got to be faster than the legislators are willing to do it right now. We need to have pressure from the citizenry that we demand this. Our office is drafting the California Green New Deal. We have a 350-page draft bill. We've been working like mad to get the governor to declare a state of climate emergency. We have to do very concrete, practical things. The question is, what can motivate us to do that?
For me, it was purpose. Right? What I want to do is I want to take this stuff from the lab and show people that this is real and do something about it. I want to build technologies based on a secret that very few people understand, which is that this stuff is real. And if this stuff is real, that means that the textbooks are wrong. And if the textbooks are wrong, there's this whole world of opportunity.
Possibilities.
Exactly. The more people that are doing this, the more that we are sort of broadening the possibilities of what life as a human on this planet is going to be like. Are we going to be alone, or are we going to have partners?
Right.
And partners that will not just be there for us in a spiritual sense, but perhaps could share their knowledge and capabilities at a time when we most need it. Create a meetup group or something, a CE5 meetup group.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised at the number of people, and high quality people, that will come out and join you.
By transforming ourselves on the inside, we automatically manifest a new world around us.
They are trying to figure out what our potential is, our positive potential. There's a famous story of a little boy that loved butterflies. And he would collect these butterflies, and he would have them. He had this little like aviary where the butterflies would all fly around. So, and he was looking for this perfect specimen of a monarch butterfly. And he finally found this little cocoon of a monarch butterfly, and he brought it home, and he put it in this little box with cotton in it, and had lights to keep it warm. And he was, husbanding this this cocoon. Finally, it started to break out. That the butterfly started to break out of the cocoon, and it was struggling and broke through the silken threads, and it was struggling and struggling, and there was only one little silken thread left, and it was struggling like mad against it with the wings. And the little boy felt so much sympathy for them. He took out a little pair of scissors, and he clipped that last little silken thread, and the butterfly came free. And it was a perfect specimen of a monarch butterfly, except that it could never fly. Because it turns out that it was the struggling against that last thread that was necessary to develop the muscle set that enabled them to fly. It's important to remember that. It's important to remember that our struggle to save ourselves and to save our planet and to save our climate system and stuff is something that we have to go through if we're going to qualify to participate in this civilization that exists. Otherwise we're a primitive group of people that are so dangerous or self-destructive that we aren't going to be welcome. That's what's going on.
So the question is, are you in or are you out?
Where have all the good men gone? The ones that held in their arms justice for all mankind, and listened till they heard both sides. Is this reality? We can't define what makes us care to breathe. But if I ruled the world, I'd sail the seas, looking for someone to tell me what it means to love without taking, hold with gentle ease. Stay where you can't see what's really beneath. If I ruled the